Thank you all three. That was great. I finally get to meet some real-life bloggers from the internet. They do exist. That was really fascinating, but the downside is my emotional curve has gone all the way down again. And now I realize I'm not one of the trendy, anti-digital new generation. I'm just a tired, old, traditional journalist who's on the way out. But thanks for putting Latvia a bit on the map. It was good when we saw the drop-down of Google searches for Latvia. Where is Latvia? What is Latvia? I hope that, Cash, you're soon going to have some well-known world leaders amongst your readership who are able to tell the difference between the Baltics and the Balkans. I've got to concur as well about the attractions of the Rothko Centre in Daugavpils. I know I made a crack earlier on about it not being very sunny in Daugavpils, but I went down there last year. I live in Cēsis, and I saw a poster at a bus stop in Cēsis that there was a single painting by Edvard Munch being displayed at the Rothko Centre. So I got in my car, I drove 3 hours, and I spent all afternoon sitting with this single, not very well-known, unfinished painting by Edvard Munch. And it was an absolutely fantastic experience. And I stayed that night at the Rothko Centre as well, and it is very nice, and it is very good value. But Cash was also saying we should be completely honest about the darker side, which was a theme that came out yesterday as well. And all I would say was, if you are going to stay there, make sure there's not a music festival happening the next day, and that the people who are setting it up are in the room next door to yours. I didn't get a lot of sleep that night, but when I did wake up sleep-deprived the next morning and went down to the Rothko Centre, I had the kind of revelatory experience where I hadn't really got Mark Rothko before, but maybe it was the sleep deprivation. I went in there and suddenly the paintings made a lot of sense to me, and I had an absolutely fantastic and transcendent experience there. So, I don't know, maybe you should make sure that the group, the Liggers setting up the music festival are in the next room to you after all. But speaking of putting, well, Latvia and particularly Daugavpils on the map, it also reminds me that one of my favorite signposts is not far away from Daugavpils. They're actually quite good at putting themselves on the map. There's a tiny village called Svente, just on the other side of the river Daugava, and there, behind St. Michael's Catholic Church, they have a signpost which says 217 kilometers to Riga, 2,400 kilometers to Rome, 149,600,000 kilometers to the sun. And I think that tells you a lot about the Latvian psyche. Right, we are going to have our final speaker on stage in just a minute, but before then we have a couple of pieces of housekeeping. First of all, the buses, the shuttle buses taking you back to your hotels, they'll start running at 15:30, at 3:30. It's also not too late to arrange a business-to-business meeting if that's something you want to do after the lunch break. And for those who are staying tonight and will be in Riga tomorrow, the Old Town Tour, which is definitely worth doing, will depart at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning from St. Peter's Church. So 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, make sure you're there. Just show up. You won't need to show any special accreditation or anything, and you can take the Old Town Tour. Right, time to introduce our final speaker, though I got to admit I'm a little bit nervous because she's also pretty much the only other person who's ever given me a moderating job. And this was at TechChill, the festival which she co-founded and is the chief executive officer of last year. She put me on first for what was supposed to be a sort of light-hearted introduction to the festival. I took it very, very seriously, put on my best suit. I came up with loads of really good penetrating questions that I wanted to ask my guests. And what happened? They rocked on stage literally with a bag full of bottles of wine, opened them immediately and forced me to drink them while they talked about their sex lives to an audience of 500 people. So I'm kind of amazed that I was ever asked to do moderating again. But here she is. Her name is Marija Ručevska. got to roll my R's properly, Marija Ručevska. She's co-founder and board member of TechChill, and she's a bit of a legend of the Latvian startup and tech scene. So, Marija, over to you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, that was quite an introduction, right? And that probably explains why that was my last year as a CEO of TechChill, because Mike and these bunch of other guys just, hopped up on the stage, drank some beers, talked some words that are not even spoken on the stage. But yeah, that's that. That's a past. Now we're towards the future. So let's talk the actual things that matters. My name is Marija, and I'm the co-founder of the nonprofit organization TechChill, and I'm also the co-founder of a private liability company that I just recently founded called 11th. And I'm going to talk about the topic why it matters for states, for countries, for regions to think towards digitalization, to think about pushing their nations towards a more global, more inclusive, and more sustainable part of the living. And why I qualify? I already mentioned parts of it. During TechChill, it's not only a festival, it's an actual organization that pushes Latvian and Baltic founders to think global, to build global products, and to go out there and conquer global markets. And besides that, in order for our founders to achieve these goals, it requires for us as an organization to market them, because they have a lot of different type of problems that they want to solve, and this ain't one. We have to step into the game where we actually market the country itself, because that's what the global investors are going to first hear. Oh, you're from Latvia, fine, so... And for now, we don't have a good image about it, so that's why it matters. And as for 11th, we are building a company that will focus mostly on attracting the smart talent to the country here in Latvia, and mostly it's going to be in the IT and tech scene. So let's dig into a bit of a history. The whole tech industry emerged in the early 90s. That was one part where it felt like an explosion. It emerged in California state in the US. And it changed a lot how people think, presume things, how they live, and most importantly, how they do business. During the time when dot-com bubble came into the tech scene, a lot of founders from across the world traveled to Silicon Valley, or let's call it Bay Area. They traveled there because they knew that the smart investment is there. They knew that the most creative people on earth at that time are there in order to build these global products. So it fled a massive, massive crowd of people to one city only, and that city was San Francisco. Soon after that, San Francisco became California's tech innovation hub. Everyone wanted to be there. Everyone. Of course, not all of them wanted to live there, but the vibe around it, the scalability, the global approach, everything was there. So everyone wanted to be there, but at the same time, it was not possible, of course. Because a lot of good things come to an end at some point. Imagine if Latvia would be on the map right now and everyone would want to come here. Obviously, we would take that into consideration and use it in order to make more money. So this whole Silicon Valley bubble thing resulted eventually into something we know as becoming a more expensive region. So what does that mean? The people over there ended up in super expensive living conditions, ending up with a lot of homeless people around the city, and it is not good. It's not a good picture. none of us want to know how that ends. And of course, not only the living conditions were expensive, there was also the part where you couldn't even have an office rent paid. It was so high, the office rents were high, the living expenses were high, and all of that just drew people away from there. I'm not even talking about the tech companies itself, because they started to outsource people from different type of regions around the world, but I'm also talking about the industries that were formally into the San Francisco, but as everyone was talking about the tech scene, it just drew away other type of industries. So for example, art creators and etc. And that was the point where the rest of the Europe understood that there is a gap in it. So San Francisco is already an old innovation hub. It has its own issues. So we're gonna, just jump into right now, and we'll take it over. So Europe had this plan. It was like 10 years ago. And so all of a suddenly, the tech started to shift from inclusive to from an exclusive to an inclusive tech. Meaning not only the location-wise, but also it was around the diversity topic. More and more women came into the scene, more and more different type of colored people came into the scene, so it was really mind-blowing. And also that was the time when few of European cities first proclaimed themselves as the innovation hubs, / they were branding themselves as a country, as a digitally advanced countries. And that was London, firstly, and then the same cycle happened with London, and of course Brexit now, and then it moved to Berlin. And now, basically, whole world, and I'm just gonna, limit myself, and I'm gonna stick to the Europe, whole world is at war of who's gonna be the next innovation hub in Europe. And why is that so? It really matters a lot if you can call yourself that way, but it only matters if you can meet the expectations within the country. So in order to deliver the full package, you have to first resolve all the issues you have in the country. And how do we create it? How do we create this digital country image? It's really easy. It's as if you would take your own project and would start to map out what's the value proposition. You start to identify different type of sectors, and you just see in which sector are we the most good at, in which sector do we lack something, and then we see what kind of value added we can provide to the rest of the Europe in order to be competitive enough. So let's take a closer look to the Baltics and Nordics region, to more ever limited. Let's take a closer look. So Scandinavia has a really good branding. Baltics are improving, but every day, I think. We also are in the phase of, it's legit. We live in a legit region. But Finland, for example, for years has been known as the place where it's really good to be at if you want to school yourself. So it's a place where you can have a really good education, and that's why people want to go there. When you see it Estonia, and I don't even want to go there, of course, but it's the first digital nation worldwide. They have proclaimed themselves, self-proclaiming, that they're the digital ones. And now they are aiming, for the last my record, at becoming the cyber capital of Europe. So that's like the next level already. Meanwhile, Lithuania has just now put their stepped their foot into becoming the first advanced financial tech mecca, and by now they're really succeeding in it. So where does this leave us? Where does that leave Latvia? There are a lot of issues to be solved, and from what I have been experiencing for the last 5 years, when we actually, have tried to bring in smart money, bring in the smart talent, market us, bring in more and more investment in general of creating some kind of office spaces with well-known brands, trying to build around the tech ecosystem, the stakeholders, agreements, and etc. But it really comes down to the point where all of us have to be really united into what we are communicating. So I dig up some things on internet in order to, I didn't have much time to prepare the research myself, but this is what I came up with while going through some Google stuff, is that these are Latvians talking about themselves. And they think that the global competitive advantage of ours is first connectivity, and second, it's the greenness. When I talk about the connectivity, I mean, we have a really good internet. We brag about it. We brag about the speed of the internet. That's cute, of course, but yeah, at the end of the day, you know, Estonia is having the same type of speed almost, and it's not really something you kind of, you know, persuade your investors with. Then there is the connectivity side of us being very well connected to different kind of other European cities. Well, now we're talking. This is something a lot of countries are missing yet, and we have this ecosystem, so we can use it. Then there is the thing, or I don't know how to best call it, narrative, that you can get from anyone with only 2 handshakes to a prime minister. And that's only happening in small countries. So you can push through initiatives way faster than in big countries. And of course, then there is the strength part and the experience part. People say that it's really good place as a testing ground, so sort of a sandbox type of thing. And we have already produced some globally recognized talents, which leaves us with the feeling that they have a good people over there. So that we can work with as well. But what's the actual status of the Latvia's digital image still remains pretty unclear. I have heard a lot of different narratives when it comes how to market ourselves as a digitally advanced country. So I remember that there was this one bunch of guys who tried to market ourselves as an Amber Valley. Yeah, good luck with that. There was a few other people who tried to put us on the map as the testing ground, which is already something we can work with. And there has also been someone who tried to put all the efforts on R&D, which is also something we can work with. But at the end of the day, none fit the common vision, as in a really true Latvian spirit. We couldn't decide up amongst like few people. So that resulted into nothing, which leaves us with no certain strategy of how to approach the market upon Latvia. And we're still in the phase, in the public media and international media, being called as the post-Soviet Union country, which we have to most certainly get rid of. But we're still on that phase. And even more dissatisfying is to hear us as a nation which is distinguishing. So that's the harsh reality. But not everything is so bad as I'm saying now. We have a huge potential. This country has a huge potential, and that's why I am working here and I am trying to push it as much as I can, but of course I can't do it myself alone. So in order to attract that smart talent, which by the way we're going to lack around 16K people by 2020, we have to not only eliminate the bureaucracy, which is at this level still really high, because you can't expect founders to move here from Eastern European countries or the CES countries and not be let in. And that's the second biggest problem. Our country is not willing to accept yet, and it's not only Latvia, it's the whole Baltic region. It's just so frustrating for young specialists to come and live here. But we need it. We need to fill in this gap of people. By the time when our children and our students will be able to fill in that gap for us. But it's a huge gap that we have to just work on, and it's happening now. So what's the plan? I'm myself working now on this type of idea that we have to communicate the strong united country branding strategy. First we have to create it, then we have to communicate it. Before doing that, we have already for years worked on the expectations being met with the actual reality, and that equals growth and acceleration, of course. And when I say activities that we are already doing, I mean there are a lot of event platforms, such as TechChill, for example, or LIA themselves are hosting eNovus, that are trying to create this image. But what if we act together? What if we have one common vision and one common goal, not being communicated in different type of channels with different kind of messages? We are showcasing ourselves in huge tech conferences, going to the smart talent themselves, to Ukraine, to Kiev, to Belarus, to Minsk, and trying to sort of have them face to face and make them believe that this is the best place where to start up. Also, we're investing into science and research, which could be a huge thing for us in the future, though. And then there are such activities as corporate innovation, and of course, a massive efforts being put into how to best work with the government, how to meet the reality, how to push initiatives, and how to have those people come over without a huge hustle, which is happening now. So call to action. I like to end my presentations with a call to action. I think that if all of us sort of have this global mindset, it's already way easier. If all of us somehow evolve our inner hustle, we can already be competitive. So all it takes is for us to be a bit more braver, a bit more louder, and a bit more bolder. But of course, we have to first take into the consideration that it requires a massive research on the competitiveness of the region. It requires joint communication efforts, and of course, a lot of work to be put into building the ecosystem itself. And on top of that, this is something I took from a guy who did his master's on country image branding about Latvia. And what if we stop complaining, as it's a true Latvian spirit, complain? What if we stop complaining about the shrinking population? What if we stop complaining about the stupid government? And what if we stop complaining about the cold winters, which are actually not that cold after all? There are more colder ones. And instead of that, we start to invite people over. We become this inclusive state where there are a lot of opportunities, a free space for growth. We invite investors, we invite founders to experience it, to have it both, business-wise and culture-wise. I would like to see that happening. I would like to see that as a purpose of our next strategy for the country itself. So this is me. Tech is the future, inevitably, and let's just stop fooling around. Thank you. Do I have some time for questions, or that's done? Questions, anyone?
Well, we have some appearing on the screen behind you here.
Oh, okay.
So why don't we take that one, and maybe a couple others will flow as we go.
Sure. What is the 60K lack of ID special about what about other fields such as design? Any idea? Design as in, what do you mean by design? Is that meant as a...
I don't know. I think they're asking if maybe there are going to be skills shortages coming up by 2020, but that is something which people are talking about. I mean, is that going to... You know, it could become a bit of a self-producing problem if Latvia becomes successful in IT, and yet the talent's not there to
I have no statistics about the design part that I know, but when I say IT specialists and tech scene specialists, I mean people in general. We not only lack the technical part, but also the part what actually executes things.
And if I could ask a question myself, I mean, coming back to TechChill,
Yeah.
there are lots of similar, well, not similar, but there are lots of festivals on similar themes happening in lots of other parts of the world. A lot of them, in fact, happening in Finland, Estonia.
Yeah.
What is it that makes TechChill and maybe the Latvian way of treating this subject different?
It's no different. I mean, all of these countries have succeeded, and this is one tool you can use in order to succeed and grow as a country digitally. So TechChill is just, you know, Latvian version of everything, a Baltic version of that kind of festival. It's no different. The different part is that we're a non-profit, and we focus mostly on Latvian founders and help them succeed. That's it, and the Latvian country image.
And we have another question here from Austin, who I could see was sitting down at the front here. So at last, someone who's not anonymous asking a question. Promote the country or region, Austin asks.
That's country versus region, you mean? I have a... So, yeah. Yeah, we have tried actually that. We have had... we Latvians approached Lithuanians and Estonians back in the days, not that far away actually, in the beginning of this year. We wanted to work on this concept of going together as a region, the Baltic region, but as they are slightly ahead of us, they were not really interested because they have already put efforts into their own country building image. So that left us with acting by ourselves. So that's some kind of a ship that has already, you know, went into the big ocean. And in the reality, our goal and our aim is to communicate what happens in Latvia, because we're not, if we speak about the Baltics, it's just too general. And we can, of course, try to tackle it, but when it comes to Latvia, that's the biggest achievement we have to do. We have to bring people to here, to Riga.
We've got two more questions here, and maybe we'll make these the last two, but I'm going to save Kash's for last, because I think it's a very interesting one. Anonymous asks, and this is a bit of a mean thing to ask as well while we've got all the branding around us, but it's got to be asked, right? What do you think about the Magnetic Latvia marketing campaign? I made a bit of a joke about it yesterday, but what's your take on it?
I actually, I think I left this part out, but I had it in my presentation. So I think Magnetic Latvia is really a good concept, and there are a lot of other concepts that are being aimed to a certain sort of like target audience. So Magnetic Latvia is mostly for LIA to be able to communicate how we attract the investment here. And that's why it's magnetic. And, you know, also people can sort of like jump around it and so on. But then there is Live Riga with its capital side slogan, which is Live Riga, yes, culturally. But then there is this travel development agency who are talking about Latvia as a best enjoyed slowly.
Yeah.
So that kind of like, you know, goes together, Live Riga thing with this travel agency thing. And then there is also Latvian Institute who are, I don't know what they're doing actually. They're trying to have all these communication type of slogans put into one social media platform and market all of them. So that leaves us with no purpose. We have these brandings to different type of audiences, I think.
But that brings us perfectly to Kash's question, which is almost literally the million-dollar question, because it's what consultants get hired to answer about every 5 years, and they come up with something, and then people decide they don't quite like the answer they've been given, and so they hire someone else. Branding Latvia. If you were to describe Latvia in one sentence, what would it be?
That's a tough one.
I'll give you one moment to think, because it's one of those topics that I toss around in my head every now and again. Because, you know, if you do criticize a slogan or a branding initiative, you at least need to kind of come up with some sort of alternative to show that you you did better, or at least you tried to do better. So my answer to this over the years, what I've come up with for the Latvian tourism, specifically branding slogan, would be, where trees would go on holiday. Any options from you, Marija?
Yeah, well, I don't have a specific slogan, but my vision for Latvia is to be called as one of the Nordic countries. So I think once we have the Nordic flag around us, then we have a full speed ahead. That's it.
Great, thank you. Well, that takes us back nicely to the whole idea of Baltic region as well, and the fact that these are not just national relationships we have, they're international and regional relationships. Thank you very much, Marija. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you.
And sadly, that seems to bring us to the end of our 2 days of discussions. What I am usually charged with at this point is coming up with some nice little summary of what we've all learned, but I think that would be doing a bit of a disservice to the very wide range of topics that we've heard discussed, and to characterize it as something like, you know, just do it, or failure is success, or something like that, I think would be a bit of a pat solution. If we have learned anything from my personal take, would be that be open to opportunities, but also be aware of the problems as well. You don't ignore the problems. They're all part of the same process. And I think also just the fact that action is generally better than inaction. So just have a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, at least you have the satisfaction of knowing that you tried. Thank you all for being such an attentive and polite audience. Thank you to the organizers for organizing this event and the excellent hospitality that we've all enjoyed. And remember, the buses start leaving at 15:30, but it's still light outside and there's still time to take a walk and see this part of Riga which a lot of people miss. So thank you again, and that's it for this year, apart from the angel is approaching. What is it, Angel? Oh, we have one more surprise, apparently. Andrea, he whispered to me. I have no idea what Andrea is, who Andrea is, but if Andrea's in the house, can you please come here?
Yeah. Andrea, please come and present the final document of this wonderful event. Thank you. We made it into a visual thing.
Thank you, Martin. I'm not the dancing queen, just to dance something for you, or it's not the surprise. The surprise is this nice-looking document. I see your faces, and I know you are looking like, what the hell is that? We are used to have a kind of forum declaration. That means it's a kind of conclusion, a kind of summary, what we've been talking about the last two days. And I try to summarize it so that you have a kind of alibi, what you've been done, what you've been talking about when you've been in Riga at the joint 11th Baltic Sea and Latvian Tourism Forum in 2018. I do not want to go through it on detail, because you can read it on the website of the Baltic Sea Tourism Forum. It's a kind of tradition to have such a declaration. It's just, of course, to thank you for organizing, for hosting us. And I try to summarize the points we talked about regarding creation versus preservation. You remember, in my mind, is still the plastic wheel. It's really impressive and inspiring. Maybe I will start up with a similar business model. It's regarding digitalization versus preservation, what we talked about yesterday and today. And of course, the sustainable tourism development. We had a workshop before downstairs talking about sustainability, and sustainability. And we have a position paper, which is also published today on the website. And we kindly ask you and invite you to support this paper, to have a voice, to have an official document which you can use, which you can rely on in future negotiations, or just to say your boss what you have done the last 2 days. I did not added the next venue of our Baltic Sea Tourism Forum in 2019. As Johannes said in the morning, it will be in Russia. I'm really happy about that decision we made 2 days before, and I hope to see you all there in autumn 2019. Thank you very much.